Hello, and welcome to Cozy Bedtime, a snug little spot where evening stories and gentle relaxation lead the way to a peaceful night's sleep. Tonight, we share another soothing tale designed to calm your thoughts and invite a sense of comforting tranquility. But first, let's pause for a moment to prepare body and mind for rest. Find a comfortable position, and with each slow inhale and gentle exhale, imagine the day's worries drifting away. Detaching from daily busyness can be tough, especially as bedtime nears. But remember, the less we worry about falling asleep, the more easily our minds can release lingering tension. Allow the gentle rhythm of your breathing to wash away any leftover concerns, and let tonight's story guide you into deep relaxation. Now, settle in and let the warm, comforting atmosphere of cozy bedtime envelop you. Enjoy the story, and may your night be peaceful and restorative. Years beyond counting lay behind the city of Viridia, a jewel nestled where the wide, languid flow of the Argent River bent gracefully. It reigned as the kingdom's paramount city, its luster owing much to the royal lineage dwelling within a palace of breathtaking beauty. The river itself, a silver artery, pulsed with the lifeblood of commerce. Viridia's port was a nexus, dispatching and embracing vessels laden with goods that journeyed downstream to the coastal towns and far beyond, into the embrace of the ocean. This confluence of regal presence and mercantile vigor birthed a prosperity that echoed in the lively thrum of its streets. Merchants, purveyors of every imaginable ware, thrived, erecting elegant residences that mirrored each other across the water. Bridges, like suspended sighs of stone and timber, arched over the Argent, stitching the lives on the left bank to those on the right. Even artisans of humbler stations felt the benevolent swell. Smiths found no shortage of steeds to shoe. Metalsmiths shaped tools without cease, and apothecaries mixed their curious tinctures for a populace enjoying robust health and fortune. The adage held true. A rising tide indeed lifted all vessels in this fortunate corner of the realm. The sovereign, King Theron, possessed a temperament inclined towards mirth and festivity. Some whispered he courted frivolity. His sole progeny was the Princess Lyra, a young woman of considerable renown and admiration. Hopeful envoys from neighboring kingdoms arrived in processions, bearing gifts of staggering opulence, each aspiring to claim her hand. The throne room became a dragon's hoard of glittering jewels, fragrant soaps carved like blossoms, intricate clockwork music boxes that sang metallic lullabies, and chests brimming with exotic teas and spices. Every suitor strained to eclipse his predecessor in demonstrations of devotion. Yet their contest was complicated by more than mere rivalry. Princess Lyra, it transpired, was endowed not only with luminous beauty and a resolute spirit, but also with a keen, penetrating intellect. Consequently, matrimony was a state she approached with unhurried deliberation. As the singular heir, her life had been a tapestry woven with threads of learning chosen by her own inclination. She navigated the currents of classical literature, mastered tongues, both living and dead, and delved into the annals of history and the harmonies of music. The princess maintained exacting standards for any would-be consort, and suitor after suitor found themselves adrift, unable to navigate the depths of conversation with her. One by meticulous one, they faced rejection. King Theron, for his part, felt no urgency for her nuptials. He was frequently immersed in the sheer enjoyment of existence, swept up in the court's diversions, rarely pausing to press the matter. King Theron cherished a magnificent alabaster steed, and among his keenest pleasures were long, exhilarating rides. One afternoon, whilst indulging in a spirited canter through sun-dappled woods, his loyal mount shied violently at the sudden darting of a cunning fox. The horse reared, a white sculpture against the green, and the king was unseated. Though largely unharmed, his foot became ensnared in the stirrup during the fall. Days of prescribed rest followed. Court healers applied countless poultices, yet his foot never truly regained its former ease. Walking, alas, became a burden, a constant thrum of discomfort that cast a shadow over his spirit, whispering that life's vibrant dance might be forever muted for him. Sometime thereafter, a new suitor presented himself before Princess Lyra, bearing a gift of true marvel. A pair of slippers wrought from silk as soft as a sigh, dyed the palest blush of dawn. These slippers, the suitor proclaimed, held an enchantment, allowing endless dancing without a whisper of fatigue or ache. Lyra, ever the pragmatist, harbored skepticism. Yet, embracing the spirit of empirical inquiry, she donned the slippers for a sumptuous ball hosted by a city magnate the following eve. To her profound astonishment, the promise held fast. Through the glittering revelry, she danced without pause, a whirlwind of grace, continuing until sheer exhaustion, not foot-soreness, compelled her to cease. Her feet, remarkably, felt as fresh at the final note as they had at the first. Intrigued by their provenance, she questioned the suitor. He confessed to acquiring them at great expense from a renowned itinerant cordwainer, Master Corvus, who had briefly traversed his own kingdom. An idea sparked within Lyra's astute mind. Could such artistry, such therapeutic wizardry, be fashioned for her father? Might a bespoke creation alleviate the king's persistent affliction, allowing him to tread happily once more? She dispatched one of the king's swiftest, most trusted retainers with instructions to locate the elusive Master Corvus, promising the craftsman riches beyond measure should he conjure a miraculous remedy. Weeks bled into one another, heavy and slow. King Theron remained largely confined, his malaise casting a pall over Viridia. When the king's spirit flagged, the city's own vibrancy dimmed. Festivities ceased. The rhythm of celebration faltered. Without their monarch orchestrating the accustomed revelries, the citizens found existence markedly less effervescent. At long last, the messenger returned, Master Corvus in tow. A ripple of excited anticipation surged through the palace. Word had preceded him. The craftsman carried with him a shoe purported to banish the king's discomfort entirely. The presentation was scheduled for the throne room the very next morrow. Naturally, Master Corvus was installed in the palace's most opulent guest suite. He occupied the chamber with an air of quiet authority, directing footmen to place a distinctive, intricately carved wooden chest at the foot of his bed. All eyes lingered on that chest, for within it, surely, lay the king's salvation. Among the palace servants moved a young man named Elian. His duties involved the tending of fireplaces and the general tidying of chambers. Elian possessed a quiet handsomeness and a mind sharper than his station might suggest. Raised by his uncle, Master Silas, the proprietor of a cherished bookshop, Elian had spent countless hours lost in the printed word, though his pockets remained perpetually light. Palace service had seemed the most viable path to sustenance. Thus, he swept and polished, day in, day out, without murmur. Elian entered Master Corvus's chamber after the craftsman had descended for the evening meal. He built up the fire, casting flickering light across the room, his gaze scanning for any disarray. It snagged on the ornate wooden box. Like everyone else, he felt its significance, the potent mystery it held. An irresistible curiosity prickled him. His fingers traced the elaborate carvings before he succumbed. Just a swift glance. He lifted the heavy metal latch and peered inside. There, nestled upon deep purple velvet, lay a single, large slipper of immaculate white silk. He dared not touch it, lest the soot on his hands mar its perfection. Never had he beheld footwear so exquisite. As he admired it, a sound echoed from the corridor, footsteps approaching. Master Corvus was returning. With a soft click, Elian secured the lid and slid beneath the heavy bed, concealing himself behind the thick dust ruffle. Master Corvus entered, and Elian heard the soft clink of items being placed upon a nearby table. Pressing his cheek to the cool floorboards, he could just discern the craftsman setting out a small jar and a soft brush. The man then approached the wooden chest, perilously close to Elian's hiding place, but seemed utterly oblivious to his presence. Instead, he retrieved the pristine white slipper. Carrying it back to the table, he proceeded to delicately brush the interior of the slipper with a fine powder from the jar. It shimmered, catching the firelight for a fleeting instant. He tapped the brush thrice against the jar's rim, sealed it securely, and returned both powder and slipper to their places. His task complete, humming a contented tune under his breath, Master Corvus donned a velvet cloak and departed the chamber once more. Certain the craftsman was gone, Elian emerged from his refuge. The table stood empty, the chest remained firmly shut. Unwilling to risk discovery, Elian quit the room and resumed his duties, yet the image of the slipper and the furtive application of the glittering dust lingered persistently in his thoughts. What had the craftsman been doing? Elian was not present in the throne room the following day for the grand unveiling, but the triumphant news spread through the servant corridors like wildfire. The slipper, gossip confirmed, had worked its magic. The king's pain had evaporated the moment the shoe embraced his foot. He was restored, his jovial spirit rekindled. Reports placed him already strolling the gardens with members of the court, and whispers spoke of a lavish ball already in the planning. Master Corvus, laden with royal gold, had departed to fulfill commissions in far-flung lands. A collective sigh of relief swept through Viridia. Life would resume its joyful cadence. King Theron plunged back into his pursuits with characteristic gusto. Soon, his energies were consumed by organizing a magnificent regatta on the Argent River, an event for all citizens to enjoy. The day was declared a holiday, promising games, races, and, naturally, abundant feasting. A grand barge was prepared for the king and his court, a floating platform upon the river from which to observe the spectacle, spacious enough even for dancing. Speculation buzzed about who would earn the coveted privilege of attending the king upon it. The holiday dawned beneath a sky of brilliant, cloudless blue. The Argent River teemed with small boats, their masts fluttering with colorful pennants. The clear water sparkled as if strewn with liquid diamonds. Music drifted from every quarter, mingling with the tantalizing aromas of roasting meats and spiced pastries. Aboard the royal barge, the king and his retinue reveled, lost in dance, food, and laughter as the day unfolded. Then, abruptly, the unexpected occurred. Leaning over the barge's railing to exchange words with someone in a nearby vessel, the king lost his footing, teetering precariously close to the water's edge. Hands reached out instantly, steadying him, but in the brief commotion, as he regained his balance, the cherished white slipper slipped from his foot. It struck the water, bobbed momentarily like a fallen petal, and then surrendered to the river's depths. A cry arose. Swimmers. Dive. People leaned from adjacent boats, trailing hands through the water. Many plunged bravely into the current, searching frantically. But despite every effort, the slipper remained lost, swallowed by the Argent. Almost immediately, King Theron complained of returning discomfort, an inability to bear weight on his foot. He was carried back to the palace, utterly disconsolate. In the ensuing days, the river became a hive of desperate activity. The king offered a substantial reward for the slipper's return. News traveled swiftly, drawing fortune hunters from neighboring realms, all eager to claim the prize. They dredged the riverbed, combed the banks, sifted through mud, and cast nets across channels, endlessly repeating the same fruitless searches. Princess Lyra observed the cycle of failure, watched hope drain from her father with each passing day. One morning, her resolve solidified. She made a public declaration. In addition to her father's reward, she would bestow her hand in marriage upon whoever succeeded in this daunting recovery. Privately, however, Lyra doubted the slipper would ever surface. The Argent was deep, its current strong. It had claimed far more substantial things than footwear. Her secret hope lay elsewhere, that perhaps this challenge might summon forth not just a lucky finder, but someone possessed of greater ingenuity, a mind she could respect, a spirit she could perhaps even love, who might devise a truer solution to her father's plight. Elian, like every soul in Viridia, heard Princess Lyra's proclamation. Though merely a servant, sweeping ashes and polishing brass, he harbored a deep, quiet admiration for the princess. Her wit captivated him as much as her grace. Elian remembered the shelves, laden with volumes on science and alchemy in his Uncle Silas's bookshop. He had devoured those texts in his youth, marveling at the hidden knowledge they contained. While he understood nothing of enchanted footwear, the memory of Master Corvus and the clandestine dusting of the king's slipper with that shimmering powder remained vivid. Logic whispered that the powder, not the silk, must have been the source of the relief. Elian resolved to seek the origin of the powdered remedy itself, rather than join the futile hunt for the lost slipper. His pursuit became tireless. While the riverbanks thronged with hopefuls diving and dredging, Elian dedicated every spare moment to the quiet sanctuary of his uncle's shop. It was a haven, piled high with literary treasures, culinary guides cheek by jowl with worn histories, classical texts in myriad tongues. Novels and storybooks lay in precarious stacks alongside volumes of poetry. Here and there, a cozy, threadbare armchair beckoned from a quiet corner, promising hours lost within the pages of a good book. Elian haunted these nooks, borrowing books on alchemy and herbalism, carrying them back to the palace to study in stolen moments. One day, buried within a dusty treatise on plant lore, he found it. Mention of a unique flower, the moon petal bloom, thriving in a specific locale upon the plains of a nearby kingdom. Its pollen, the text claimed, possessed potent analgesic properties, but crucially, it had to be harvested under moonlight and retained its efficacy only in its pure powdered form. It could not be diluted or infused. Consulting the maps Master Silas kept, Elian calculated the journey. Roughly a week's ride on horseback to reach this fabled place. A significant obstacle arose. Neither he nor his uncle owned a horse. Any acquaintance fortunate enough to possess one could scarcely spare it for the weeks required. Yet, Elian knew securing this miraculous pollen was his sole chance to alleviate the king's suffering and, perhaps impossibly, to win Lyra's regard. Risking everything, he determined to approach the king directly at the next public audience. Later that week, he joined the queue of citizens awaiting their turn outside the royal chambers. These audiences were notoriously lengthy, often fraying the king's already taxed patience. Unfortunately for Elian, he found himself near the very end of the line. After hours had passed, with only a few petitioners remaining, Elian finally stood before the throne. King Theron, weary, gestured impatiently for him to speak. "Your Highness," Elian began, his voice steady despite the tremor within. "I believe I may have discovered a way to cure your ailment, but I require the loan of a horse." A collective gasp rippled through the assembled courtiers. The sheer audacity, a fireplace cleaner requesting a royal steed, proposing a cure where experts and fortune hunters had failed. Seeing his opportunity dwindle, Elian pressed on. "There is a flower," he explained, that grows in a particular place. I know its location, but reaching it on foot would take a month. If your Highness could grant me a horse, I could return within 2 weeks and potentially relieve your pain. Murmurs turned to scornful laughter among the nobles. The king shifted, his expression unreadable. Elian braced for dismissal, but then the unexpected. "Give the lad a horse," King Theron commanded, silencing the room. "And quickly. If he succeeds where all you preening experts have stumbled, it will be worth the wager." With a dismissive flick of his wrist, he waved Elian away and declared the audience concluded. Princess Lyra, seated near the throne throughout this extraordinary exchange, felt a spark of fascination. This young man's willingness to abandon the futile search and pursue a novel path resonated with her own respect for intellect. His courage in presenting such a bold proposition directly to the king was undeniably admirable. Though wary of false hope, she found herself silently wishing Elian success, hoping he might indeed conjure the miracle needed. Meanwhile, Elian hastened to prepare. News of his audacious audience flew through the palace, becoming the subject of intense whispers among the staff. Far from mocking, his fellow servants rallied around him. The head cook packed generous provisions. The groom selected one of the sturdiest horses from the royal stables. Suddenly, all eyes were upon Elian, the humble servant boy embarking on an improbable quest. He departed the next morning, equipped with food, water, the precious herbalist tome, and a map annotated by his uncle. Master Silas held quiet faith in his nephew's diligence and bravery. Soon, Elian rode beyond the familiar bounds of Viridia, further than he had ever ventured. He crossed the Argent over a soaring bridge, traversed dense woodlands, navigated a windswept mountain pass, and finally emerged onto the vast, grassy plains described in his book. He rode for long hours, pausing only for essential rest. When endless expanses of wild flowers unfurled before him like a vibrant carpet, he knew he had arrived. Dismounting, he let his horse graze while he consulted the herbalist book, comparing its illustration to the surrounding flora. He walked slowly, methodically circling the area. It took the better part of the day, but as the sun dipped towards the horizon, painting the sky in fiery hues, he discovered them. A large cluster of delicate white blossoms matching the description precisely. His treasure was found. He ate a simple meal from his provisions, sitting contentedly amidst the whispering grass, awaiting nightfall. The book instructed that only after dark would the flowers unfurl, revealing their potent gift. He dozed as twilight deepened into dusk. The melancholic hoot of an owl startled him awake some time later. He sat up in the cool, moon-drenched darkness. Before him, luminous in the silvery light, stretched a sea of open blooms. Taking his jar, just as the text described, he moved carefully among them, lightly tapping each open flower, gently shaking the iridescent pollen into the container. Patiently, meticulously, he worked, moving from cluster to cluster until the jar was full. He secured the lid tightly and stowed the precious cargo in his saddlebag. As dawn painted the eastern sky, Elian was already urging his horse homeward. Yet, a question shadowed his thoughts. What if the powder failed? Everything hinged on this single, desperate hope. Back through the windy pass he rode, retracing his path through the forest. Within a week, the familiar spires of Viridia rose on the horizon. He crossed the great bridge again, heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. His return to the stable yard caused a stir. Servants gathered, eager for news. Had he found it? What was the journey like? Would the cure truly work? Elian offered polite, non-committal answers, withdrawing the precious jar and tucking it safely into his coat pocket. As the crowd dispersed, he approached one of the princess's ladies-in-waiting, bowing respectfully. "Might I beg a small favor?" he asked quietly. "Could you possibly lend me a soft brush, the sort a lady might use for applying face powder?" "Yes," the maid replied readily, fetching a small, downy brush, while Elian waited. Possessing this final implement, he returned the herbalist's book and map to his uncle's shop, carrying only the jar of pollen. Tomorrow, he would face the king once more. By the following morning, news of Elian's return had permeated Viridia. The audacious young servant, previously unnoticed, was now the center of intense curiosity. By royal decree, Elian was granted the first position in the day's audience. As the massive carved doors to the throne room swung inward, he inhaled deeply, straightened his shoulders, and fought to banish the tendrils of doubt. He walked the length of the hall towards the king, who sat with Princess Lyra beside him. The chamber seemed unusually crowded. The entire court, it appeared, had assembled for this spectacle. Bowing low, Elian began. "Your Majesty," he announced clearly, "I have returned with what I believe will end your pain, but it requires no special shoe." The king regarded him with undisguised skepticism. Elian continued, producing the jar and the small brush from his coat. "If your Majesty would permit me the shoe you currently wear, I shall demonstrate." A ripple of shock went through the onlookers, a commoner requesting the king's own shoe. Yet, after a moment's hesitation, King Theron nodded assent. A servant knelt and carefully removed the silk slipper from the royal foot. With another respectful dip of his head, Elian took the king's shoe. He uncapped the jar and, using the borrowed brush, lightly dusted the interior with the moon-harvested pollen, mimicking the precise motions he had observed Master Corvus perform weeks earlier. The application complete, the moment of reckoning arrived. Elian handed the shoe back to the waiting servant, who gently eased it onto the king's foot. Elian risked a glance at Lyra. Her eyes were wide, her breath held captive. The king stood. He flexed his ankle. He took a tentative step, then another. He hopped lightly. A slow dawn of disbelief, then radiant joy, spread across his face. He began to move, almost to dance, waving his hands exuberantly above his head. The throne room erupted in astonished chatter, 100 voices marveling at the miracle they had witnessed. But Elian's attention was elsewhere. He turned, meeting Lyra's gaze directly. A slow, genuine smile bloomed on her lips, mirroring the relief flooding his own heart. Though all focus remained on the jubilant king, in that shared glance, Elian and Lyra knew their own story had just begun. And so, King Theron was truly himself again. The lost slipper, now understood to hold no intrinsic magic, became irrelevant. He commissioned an entire wardrobe of slippers in vibrant hues, each ready to receive its dusting of the potent pollen. Festivals and celebrations returned to Viridia with renewed vigor. Yet the grandest, most joyful occasion of that year was the wedding of Princess Lyra and Elian. They became inseparable, often seen strolling the palace gardens even before their union, engrossed in animated conversation. Together, they founded an expansive library within the palace walls, generously stocked, naturally, by Elian's delighted uncle. It boasted comfortable armchairs, towering shelves accessed by rolling ladders, and broad tables displaying immense atlases and maps. For Lyra and Elian knew, despite everything, they both still had a great deal of reading to do. King Theron rarely ventured into the library, but he was happy, his step light once more. And with him, the citizens of the glittering city on the Argent River rejoiced, secure in the knowledge that under the future reign of Lyra and Elian, their lives would continue to be blessed by prosperity, merriment, and the enduring value of good common sense. Tonight commences within the soft confines of your own bed. Perhaps earlier hours were surrendered to the study of Italian Renaissance artistry, your thoughts ensnared by one canvas above all, Sandro Mariano's Primavera, a marvel of tempera upon wood, brought to completion somewhere between the waning 1470s and the dawn of the 1480s. This creation, known more widely under the artist's moniker, Botticelli, stands immense, a breadth of 10 feet, crowning a height of 6.5. Mariano, a luminary amidst Florence's artistic zenith during the Renaissance, turned his craft towards mythological narratives after papal commissions drew him to Rome's Sistine Chapel. Centuries hence, it is these works, Primavera and its sibling, the birth of Venus among them, that etch his most enduring legacy. Primavera especially resonates, a breathtaking weave of symbolism drawn from nature's lexicon and literary lore. This tableau of burgeoning spring occupies your mind's foreground as slumber beckons. You drift within that threshold realm, the liminal shimmer between wakefulness and sleep, where the tangible world softens its edges. Before you, Primavera materializes, suspended against an ornately adorned wall, encased in a lustrous gold timber frame. It hangs alone, the sole occupant of this chamber. Drawn closer, you approach, seeking finer detail. The painting looms, its figures rendered in life's own scale. your gaze inevitably finds the goddess Cytherea, the composition's serene nucleus. Cytherea, sovereign of Roman love, beauty, fecundity, and fortune. Though 8 other beings populate her realm, the eye travels unimpeded to her form. Her tresses cascade, long and golden. Her generous figure is draped in royal blue finery, overlaid with a cloak of deepest crimson. She is beauty incarnate. You observe her, and impossibly, she seems to return your stare. Her right hand lifts, a gesture of welcome, an invitation. You hesitate, a flicker of doubt. Was it mere imagination? But the movement repeats, accompanied this time by a distinct, knowing wink. Another step draws you nearer the canvas, and as you advance, the very pigments and textures deepen, vibrating, coalescing into life before your very eyes. Cytherea extends her hand, grasping yours, pulling you effortlessly within. You stand now within a verdant expanse, a meadow teeming with myriad blossoms unfurling around you. Pinks, reds, yellows, whites, some blooms familiar, others utterly strange, push delicately through the sward, speckling the foreground with vibrant bursts. The unmistakable perfume of spring's awakening permeates the air. Rose and jasmine mingle with lavender, violet, and lily. Sunlight warms your skin from a sky immaculate, utterly devoid of clouds. If ever an idol of spring existed, surely this is its purest form. Closing your eyes momentarily, you allow the profound beauty of this place to saturate your senses, drawing in a slow, deep, calming breath, releasing it fully. Eyes reopening, your attention turns to the figures arrayed before you. Their identities are known, the narrative unfolding familiar, commissioned by the illustrious Magnifico dynasty. It's widely held this piece was a wedding gift for Mascan Cosimo, a young scion of the house. This powerful banking family, a political force shaping 15th century Florence, later displayed Primavera within the couple's bedchamber. An allegory it is, celebrating spring's return, life's resurgence, marriage, fertility, transformation. Allegory, an image where symbolic characters and objects veil a moral truth, demanding decipherment. Here, immersed within the scene, its story feels intuitively understood. You recall Sandro Mariano, the artist whose deft portraiture secured the patronage of the formidable Magnifico dynasty. A virtuoso of mythological subjects, Mariano drew inspiration from classical texts and sculpture, fused with the Renaissance pursuit of the ideal human form. Whispers persisted of his deep affection for a local maiden, famed for her sweeping golden curls and graceful contours. Many believed her likeness informed every female figure within this very painting. You perceive it now, the elegant feminine shapes lending a distinct musicality to the composition. Save for Cytherea's steadfast outward gaze, all other figures are captured mid-motion, a testament to Mariano's extraordinary skill. His mastery in depicting the human body across diverse postures. While the foreground bursts with light and flourishing life, the backdrop recedes into darker tones. Beyond the assembly lies a grove dense with orange trees, interwoven with laurel, myrtle, and other foliage. You know many plants depicted carry specific weight. Oranges, an emblem of the Magnifico dynasty. Laurel, echoing victory and perhaps Cosimo's name in Italian resonance. Botanists, indeed, have cataloged over 500 distinct species of flora within this single artwork. Wandering towards the orange grove, a cool zephyr greets you, carrying the delightful fragrance of fresh citrus. As the breeze stirs, you look upwards, witnessing Favonius, descending at the painting's far right. Favonius, god of the west wind, herald of spring, emerges from the arboreal screen to claim the nymph. Chlora, as his bride. Chlora appears, clad in a gossamer gown, a flowering vine issuing from her mouth. In Favonius's embrace, she undergoes metamorphosis, becoming Florentia, Roman goddess of flowers, spring personified. Florentia stands poised between Chlora and Cytherea, adorned in a magnificent, flowing dress patterned with blossoms. She cradles roses gathered in the folds of her gown, scattering them onto the grass below. Each scattering sends petals, billowing softly before they alight upon the earth, an offering symbolic of both springtime and nascent life. Florentia wears, too, a crown and necklace woven from flowers. Her sleeves shimmer as if crafted from dragonfly wings. Golden scales sheath her forearms, and decorative plumes fan out where these gilded wings meet the silken fabric of the upper sleeve. The intricacy, the sheer artistry manifest in Florentia's attire leaves you breathless. Now, you regard the triad on the painting's right, Favonius, Chlora, Florentia, as a single symbolic unit representing spring's inception. Another profound inhalation, a complete exhalation. You contemplate early spring symbolism, the burgeoning flowers, the figure's transformation. It is a lucid portrayal of growth, of becoming. Witnessing it so intimately reveals the profound richness, the complex layering of symbols and allegories woven into this masterpiece. The Renaissance, a high season for art, where painting, literature, and philosophy intertwined, marking a return to perceived classical ideals and a quest for beauty in all things. It was an epoch prioritizing humanism. The Magnifico dynasty, prolific arts patrons, famously commissioned works exploring pagan themes over purely religious ones, exemplified by this painting's central figure, Cytherea. Cytherea occupies the composition's heart, positioned slightly behind and elevated above the foreground figures. Her direct, outward gaze confirms her centrality. The trees behind her part, forming an arch strongly reminiscent of a halo or an arboreal apse, a semicircular architectural recess typically framing depictions of the Virgin Mary in religious art. Mary, too, is often shown in red and blue, mirroring Cytherea's attire here. This interplay of Christian and pagan iconography is distinctly Renaissance. Within Primavera, Cytherea embodies love, beauty, and matrimony, while Florentia signifies new love, potential, and early spring. Cytherea represents motherhood, the season's full embodiment. Hovering above Cytherea is her son, Amor, a winged cherub blindfolded. In classical myth, Amor governs desire, love, attraction, affection. His arrow is aimed directly at Euphrosyne, mirth, chastity, one of the three charities, to the left. The blindfold evokes the ancient saying, "Love is blind." Just left of Cytherea and Amor dance the three charities. Aglaia, splendor, cheer, beauty. Euphrosyne, mirth, chastity, and Thalia, good cheer, love. Each wears diaphanous, flowing garments revealing graceful forms. Their fingers interlace at 3 distinct points as they move in a circle, a composition suggesting continuity, rhythm, harmony. It also brilliantly displays Mariano's artistry, depicting the sisters from 3 different perspectives, mimicking sculpture, yet imbued with undeniable fluidity, elegance, and motion. The Charities were a beloved literary motif of the era. Viewers of Primavera would have recognized their narrative. From right to left, Aglaia, the most ornamented, wears a pearl coronet symbolizing purity and a refined golden pendant. Her gaze turned back towards Favonius. Euphrosyne, in the center, looks towards the god Caduceator and wears no jewels. Thalia stands on the left. Together, they represent classical feminine virtues and the varying phases of love. Gazing upon them, you're struck by a profound sense of harmony, a visual music. It's fascinating how 3 distinct figures merge into one symbolic entity. Primavera, as a whole, feels like a meditation on beauty's diverse representations and femininity itself. So much unfolds within this scene, yet beauty and vitality remain the unmistakable, overarching currents. The figure furthest left is the god Caduceator. His posture echoes Michelangelo's renowned David. Caduceator sports winged sandals, a crimson mantle, a helmet, and carries a sword. His right arm reaches skyward, gently dispersing gathering clouds, ensuring spring's eternal rain. His gaze lifts heavenward, away from the other figures. In Roman lore, Caduceator served as divine messenger, also presiding over medicine, commerce, abundance, and prosperity. Here, he symbolizes the young Cosimo. Suggestions linger that Cosimo himself modeled for the god, just as Florentia might represent his bride-to-be. Together, the 3 Charities and Caduceator signify late spring. Having contemplated each figure, each layer of symbolism, you step back, closing your eyes. Awe washes over you, the sheer beauty unfurling all around, the singular privilege of stepping inside this famed artwork, witnessing its vibrant animation. The perfume of fresh roses, lilies, and countless other blossoms is intoxicating, inspiring. The profusion of flowers and fruit, the emerald grass, the leafy canopy, it constructs a celestial garden. A gentle breeze caresses your skin. You realize Florentia has just strewn another handful of flowers near your feet. Delicate pink rose petals now blanket the earth around you. Caduceator gestures again, pushing another wisp of cloud aside, guaranteeing the sun's unobstructed radiance upon the scene. You watch the 3 Charities twirl in harmonious rhythm. Their steps light upon the petal-strewn ground, silken gowns and golden locks billowing. Above, Amor hovers, arrow nocked, while Euphrosyne dances on, blissfully unaware. The mingled scents of orange blossom, fresh-cut grass, sweet blooms, and pungent laurel drift around you. It is utterly beautiful, dreamlike. Your eyes meet Cytherea's once more. You offer silent gratitude for her welcome into this vivid world. A deep appreciation settles within you for the messages conveyed through this masterfully composed narrative. The intricate weaving of symbols, from literature, philosophy, classics, the contemplation of beauty in its varied guises, love's transformative might, the subtle nods to the powerful dynasty who commissioned it, the vibrant palette, the expertly balanced spatial arrangement. You appreciate the metamorphosis. Winter yielding to spring, maiden to bride to mother. Cytherea echoing Mary, literature rendered visual. The transformations throughout pulse with spring's essential energy, new life, potential, growth, change, beauty. This is the season of rebirth, longed for through winter's long shadows, finally manifest here in full glory. Such depth resides within this single canvas. Small wonder it stands as a crowning achievement of the entire Renaissance. You sit for a spell, absorbing all this, allowing it to settle into mind and heart. A wish surfaces to remain here indefinitely, inhabiting this perfect spring day, watching beauty and love dance eternally. Cytherea catches your gaze again, a silent assurance. You may return whenever you desire. You are welcome. This exquisite scene remains accessible, always within your mind's eye. Thanking her inwardly for this grace, you decide to linger just a while longer. Finding a pleasant spot, you lie back upon the grassy meadow, enveloped by the fragrance of fresh flowers. The earth beneath is soft, yielding. Gentle sunlight warms your skin. Your body surrenders to the ground's embrace, relaxing deeply. Florentia casts another scattering of roses nearby as you ease towards rest. With each breath, relaxation deepens. You feel safe here, welcomed, inspired. It is time now for slumber, for rejuvenation, time to rest within the most beautiful, heavenly spring garden imaginable. The dream images forming in your mind are serene as you drift slowly, completely into sleep. Good night.